What's going on, guys? And welcome back, because today we are looking at the April 28th experimental update for Arma Reforger. So let us get into what actually changed and why it matters. First up, vehicles got a pretty serious round of attention, and honestly that is one of the biggest themes here. They fixed the FIA platoon channel being set to the wrong frequency. They corrected the FIA RF10 radio so it now has two transceivers, starts turned on by default and then lets you change the frequency, and the US ANPR C77 radio also now has two transceivers. On top of that, there were several vehicle handling fixes, including cars sometimes refusing to shift up while holding turbo, locked differentials not working correctly after a regression, reverse torque being too strong, and the engine governor not behaving the way it should. They also improved simulation timing even further, which is the kind of line that sounds boring until you realize it is the sort of thing that can make the whole driving experience feel less weird and more consistent. One thing they did roll back was a change to shifting while holding turbo uphill, because it was creating problems elsewhere, so that part got reverted for now. Then there's the general gameplay side, and this is where you can tell they are smoothing out the rough edges around everyday player actions. They added a confirmation dialog so people do not accidentally hit respawn in the pause menu and essentially end themselves by mistake, which is honestly one of those fixes that feels obvious after the fact. They also disabled telemetry, fixed HDR rendering and character previews, stopped players from continuing to use user actions after the character had already died, and fixed the weird issue where vehicles were not causing fall damage when they absolutely should have been. That last one is the kind of thing players might not even notice immediately, but it helps the game behave in a way that makes sense. For the playable FIA faction, there are a few changes that will definitely affect how matches flow. Custom loadouts are now disabled for randomized spawn points. The FIA ammunition supply depot now needs the partisan rank before it can be built, and the first random spawn point on server startup has been made more randomized. That means less predictability and a little more structure around progression, which should make the faction feel a bit more controlled and balanced, instead of letting people rush certain options too quickly. Now, the persistence section is the part that really jumps out if you care about saves, custom missions, game masters, or anything long-running, because there are major internal changes here. The UUID generation for persistence has changed its internal layout and new script APIs were added, which means old save game data is incompatible and will be ignored. That is a big deal, so anyone working on persistent content needs to know that this update is not just a routine save fix. It is a format shift. They also made binary the default save game format for all missions, which is another meaningful backend change. Beyond that, they fixed global supply usage not being saved, missing persistence components on handware-based.et, GM-placed spawn points and faction info not saving properly, GM-placed tasks duplicating when loaded, resource components with no containers not saving disabled information, AI groups having cyclic save points, AI groups from the SF slot not following waypoints, a specific vehicle maintenance entity not being saved, task group associations restoring incorrectly and causing invisibility, missing radio frequencies in group tile buttons, AI group presets without role assignment disappearing on load, a scenario framework logic counter not reading from base, a faction manager serializer problem when setup was invalid, wrong slot inheritance for save games in SF, and game mode storage not working with system collection. That is a huge list, but the pattern is clear. They are tightening every place where saves, scenario state, AI behavior, and game master content can break in sneaky ways. The stability and performance section is also important because there were actual crash fixes here. They addressed a possible crash in the animation system related to replicated data from other players, a crash when damage was being registered into hit zones, a server crash on endgame events when a save process was still ongoing, and a possible crash when handling gamepad registration. Those are the kinds of fixes that do not always sound exciting in a trailer-style way, but they are absolutely the foundation for a better experience because nothing kills momentum faster than a random crash in the middle of a session. Playable content also got some useful polish. They added a map recon menu to the keybind settings, which should make that feature easier to access, and they fixed anti-air compositions spawned by Game Master so the gun would not end up inside the sandbag anymore. They also fixed a really specific but practical issue where if Game Master pulled a character out of the water, that character could not be placed on the ground properly without first adjusting altitude with left alt. That is the kind of bug that sounds funny until it happens to you, and then it becomes extremely annoying very fast.